Story 1. Anonymous. Working as a delivery driver for my local Papa John's has become a significant part of my life, especially as a college student navigating through limited job opportunities. Interestingly, some of my friends are also part of the Papa John's team, sharing the same job title. However, the nature of our work keeps us physically distant even during overlapping shifts. Last December, feeling the holiday spirit and the need for some extra income, I decided to take on additional shifts before Christmas. Little did I know that the night would unfold into a series of unexpected events. Heavy snowfall added an extra layer of challenge to our deliveries, causing them to take longer than usual. The surge in orders only intensified the situation. Despite these demanding conditions, I managed to maintain composure, although the continuous non-stop hours presented their own set of challenges. Around 9:30 p.m., I found myself grabbing the next set of orders, a task that included delivering to 2 locations merely 5 minutes apart. However, the catch was that both houses were situated quite a distance from the shop, approximately 15 minutes away. Factor in the snowy weather, and those 15 minutes easily transformed into what felt like a 25-minute journey. The initial stretch of the drive was rather routine, but soon I found myself navigating through the less frequented part of town. The aging houses and the deserted shops in the area indicated the decline of this once bustling neighborhood. After a 20-minute drive, I entered a seemingly abandoned neighborhood with empty houses and no parked cars on the side of the road. Arriving at the first address, I encountered a kind old man who paid for the pizza. While setting directions for the next delivery in the same neighborhood, I began to realize that I was venturing deeper into an area characterized by fewer houses and more open spaces. When I reached the specified address, surrounded by trees, there was an eerie absence of any neighboring houses. Knocking on the door, a middle-aged woman, who appeared to have just woken up, answered. As I handed over the pizza boxes and provided the total, she requested a moment to gather cash. Something about her demeanor raised an internal alarm, especially as she counted the money at an unusually slow pace while engaging in casual small talk. Caught up in the conversation, I briefly glanced back at my car, only to notice a man standing beside it, peering inside and tampering with the door. Upon returning my attention to the woman, her facial expression had transformed into one of anger. Recognizing the potential danger, I instinctively pushed her away, broke free, and sprinted into the nearby trees. The man's heavy footsteps echoed behind me as I raced through the snow-covered forest. After approximately 2 minutes of intense sprinting, I finally stopped to catch my breath. The fading sound of footsteps indicated that I had distanced myself from the potential threat. Guided by the moonlight, I navigated my way back to the familiar streets of the neighborhood. Once I regained phone service, I promptly dialed 911. Enduring the chilling wait for assistance, an officer eventually arrived after 10 long minutes. Simultaneously, another patrol unit was dispatched to the house where I had encountered the suspicious pair. Upon investigation, they found the man attempting to break into my car. The motive behind their actions seemed to stem from financial desperation, resorting to robbery as a means of survival. Their plan involved distracting me while the man raided my vehicle, unnoticed. I consider myself fortunate to have escaped unharmed and to have been the first target they attempted before facing legal consequences, sparing others from potential harm. Story 2. J.L.N.L. This incident occurred just last winter in early February. I was on my way to deliver my next DoorDash order, feeling a bit weary after being behind the wheel for the past 4 hours. The clock was nearing midnight, and after completing this delivery, I had decided to call it a night and head home. The concern of drowsiness on the icy roads, coupled with the snowfall, lingered in my mind. I was navigating down a relatively desolate road that connected 2 main towns in our city. However, there was a stretch of about 5 meters with no buildings or houses, nowhere to make a stop. While traversing this section, an unexpected wave of fatigue hit me, causing a momentary lapse in focus on the road. That brief moment turned out to be crucial. I hit a patch of ice, sliding towards the side. Although I fully awakened at that point, it was too late. I tried to steer back onto the road, but my car continued its trajectory into a small ditch between the road and the woods. The impact wasn't severe, thanks to the snow, but it left me feeling a bit shaken. I immediately realized it would be impossible to get my car out of this situation. Stuck on the incline of the ditch in thick snow, I hesitated to assess the damage. Despite attempting to maneuver the car for traction, my efforts seemed to worsen the situation. Amidst my attempts to figure out a solution, I noticed headlights down the road. Initially, I thought it was just a passing car. However, after a few seconds, it became evident that the lights were stationary. Someone must have been parked down the road with their headlights on. The coincidence of it happening on this long, empty road was somewhat unnerving. They weren't close enough to have stopped and offered help, but not far enough to be oblivious to my situation. I pulled out my phone and called my dad, knowing he was likely still awake and hoping for his assistance. This was a situation I had never encountered before, and I was uncertain about the best course of action. My dad assured me that he would call roadside assistance and then head down to wait with me. Grateful for his support, I continued to look down the road for the headlights from the stationary car, but they had disappeared into the darkness. The lack of visibility made it unclear whether the car had driven away or simply turned off its lights. The silence around me heightened my unease, with only the sound of the wind outside, my car breaking the stillness. After waiting for 3 minutes, a figure emerged, walking toward my car from the direction where the headlights had been. Watching him carefully, he reached a point about 15 feet from the front of my car and stopped, facing me, without making any further movements. I couldn't discern much about him as he had a hoodie covering his face. The stillness and his presence began to terrify me. After a brief moment of hesitation, I softly honked my horn, attempting to signal that I was inside the car and aware of his presence. However, he remained motionless and unresponsive. Just as I was about to call my dad again, the man turned around and walked away, disappearing down the road. I informed my dad about the strange encounter, and he assured me he was just a minute away. Remaining on the phone with him, I observed headlights turning on down the road, approaching my car. As the vehicle parked and turned off its lights, I couldn't see over the ditch, but I heard a door open. I shouted through the phone, seeking an explanation, and then my dad's car pulled in front of my view, screeching to a stop. He confronted someone who had apparently been attempting to break into my car. The individual hastily retreated and sped away. Though shaken, everything turned out okay, and my car sustained minimal damage. The events of that night remain unclear, but I am acutely aware of how fortunate I am to have not experienced the full extent of whatever might have unfolded. Story 3. Ethan Yu. Engaging in food delivery has become a routine for me, typically on the weekends and occasionally on school-free days. This particular incident unfolded just a couple of weeks before our school's much-anticipated holiday break, specifically on a Friday night where my plans were non-existent. Faced with the prospect of succumbing to boredom at home, I decided to seize the opportunity to make a few extra bucks and avoid a night of idleness by initiating the app to start receiving orders. Despite the absence of snow, the evening was marked by an unusual level of cold and strong winds. The remnants of a thin layer of snow from earlier in the day adorned the roads, creating an atmosphere of wintry chill. I commenced my deliveries around 6 p.m., completing a few routine orders before the app directed me to pick up from a nearby Burger King. After securing the food, I checked the app for the delivery location, initially assuming it to be a conventional house address. However, upon closer inspection, I discovered it was situated at the corner of 2 streets, reminiscent of a gas station. Despite finding this deviation from the norm somewhat unusual, I clicked Begin Route and embarked on the journey towards the indicated location. As I approached the intersection, the destination indeed led to a gas station, seemingly normal upon first glance. However, what struck me as peculiar was the absence of any vehicles in the parking lot. Choosing a spot at the back, I opted to remain in my car, scanning the area for the expected customer. Anticipating an awkward interaction, I presumed I would have to locate the person in the parking lot for a direct handover, a departure from the typical quick drop-offs where direct customer encounters are rare. Minutes passed without any sign of the customer, prompting me to send a text through the app notifying them of my presence. Stepping out of my car to get a better view, the entire intersection appeared eerily empty, with no passing cars, and all the stores across the street seemed to be closed for the night. As the minutes ticked by, my unease grew, compounded by the lack of response from the customer. About to retreat to my car, a truck pulled into the gas station. This older, dark red pickup, complete with tinted windows, parked a couple of spots away from me, sparking a cascade of thoughts about why someone would opt for delivery only to drive to the location themselves. Initially considering the possibility that they were a gas station worker or merely hanging out, my suspicions intensified as the driver, a man with a rugged appearance, emerged from the truck. Even from a distance, his disheveled clothing, stained and torn, struck me as noteworthy. Holding up the food bag with a faint smile, I soon realized the man didn't spare a glance at it. Instead, his eyes remained fixed on me as he approached, triggering an inexplicable instinct that urged me to leave immediately. Setting the bag on the ground, I swiftly hopped into my car. As I began backing out, the man accelerated his pace, almost as if he had anticipated my departure. I hastily fled the gas station, leaving the food behind, and glanced back to see the man rushing back to his truck. As I exited the premises, he quickly backed out and sped toward the exit I was using. With adrenaline coursing through me, I accelerated through a red light and zoomed down the road until reaching an area with more cars. The truck attempted to follow for a moment, but eventually turned away. Deeming myself safe, I promptly dialed the police, though the outcome was inconclusive. In the heat of the moment, I neglected to check the man's license plate, and upon reflection, I'm uncertain if he even had one. The lingering uncertainty of his intentions and what might have transpired if I hadn't left continues to haunt me.